Hi, he's Mattyman.
And he's Vannyboy. And you're listening to The Rusty Playground, a Gen X-centric podcast about all things Gen X, which we know to be the coolest generation.
Coolest generation. That's us. And welcome to this is the next episode in our breakdown of the Big Four. If you don't know what we're talking about, go back and listen to episode 9, the Big Four Part 1, where we talk about the Dukes of Happy.
Dukes of Hazzard.
That's what I said.
Anyway, with that being said, we're going to lose the instructions and clumsily soar through the air as we talk about the next chronologically in our list of the Big Four, the greatest American hero.
So sit back, eat some dog biscuits, and prepare to get some education on one of our absolute favorite shows. The episode will start quick because it's part of a larger discussion. So you ready, Bill?
Ready, Ralph.
Up, up, and away. On a totally different subject, let's move on to the next one chronologically, and that is one that is very near and dear to both of our hearts, without a doubt, is the greatest American hero.
Ah, yes.
Released.
I'm not going to sing it.
Well, look at what happened to me. I can't believe it myself. Suddenly, I'm up on top of the world. Should have been somebody else. Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. Never thought I could feel so free.
I could feel so free. And do it like Shatner. I never thought I could feel so free.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Gone! Sorry. All right.
Rocket Man. Okay, anyway, so this was released on March 18th, 1981, which is of note. Okay, most people here, and by most people, I mean literally everybody, is not going to remember. You will remember the event if you're a Gen Xer for sure, but you won't remember the date necessarily. But March 18th, 1981 was not only when the greatest American hero came out, it was also the day that Ronald Reagan was shot. It was a big deal. Yeah. And
I'm just thinking they probably didn't even probably air it on all channels. I mean in all areas. There were probably areas where it was just, blacked out, preempted with news.
I would think so because the show came on at night, and I remember coming back from school and Reagan, and you could see they had the footage of Reagan being shot, and they talked about it all night. So, but the thing that was also a crazy coincidence was, do you remember the name that, okay, the actor, his name was William Catt, and his name still is William Catt. He's still alive. But do you remember the name of the character that he played?
Ralph Hinckley, but yes. Oh, I know. Hinckley.
Yes, Hinckley. So Ralph Hinckley was the main character, and the man who shot Ronald Reagan was John Hinckley Jr.
Yes.
Coincidence? Yes, totally. Total coincidence. Yeah. But so because of that,
well, what about in a parallel universe in the multiverse? There's one where William Catt shot the president.
Yeah, trying to impress John Hinckley.
Oh man, that would mean Jodie Foster has to take the place of the TV show.
That would be wild.
Because you gotta have the same, it's a triangle.
Folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, and I'm sure you don't, John Hinckley Jr. shot Ronald Reagan because he had an obsession with Jodie Foster, who, believe me, would not have been interested in him anyway. But he obviously mentally disturbed and thought if he does something like that, he will impress her. Yeah, she wasn't all that impressed. And she's also a lesbian, so she's even less impressed by that. And, it was
she is actually the inspiration for the song, Shania Twain's song. That don't impress me much. Just making that up.
I love it when a plan comes together. Okay. So
that's a little later. That's
a little later. That's right. So because his name was Ralph Hinckley and John Hinckley Jr. had just shot the president of the United States, they actually changed his name to Hinkle, I think it was, for about a couple months. And then they went back when things calm down. I don't think they ever even, I think there was a couple times where they used his last name because usually it was just Ralph.
Mhm.
Now he was a teacher of at-risk teens or whatever you want to call them in high school, and they would call him Mr. Hinckley, but they would usually do it. They went back and would show basically Ralph whenever someone would say, "Hey, Mr. Hinckley," and they changed it to Hinkle, and then eventually they went back when things, when they realized that nobody's gonna.
Honestly, at that time
Mm-hmm.
when I was watching that, and let's just say they still called him Hinckley
Mm-hmm.
on that same day. Well, I guess it would if it debuted on that day.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have picked it up. I wouldn't have known.
yeah, I wouldn't
I'm not.
either.
I'd never notice that stuff. I'm obtuse, man.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
not
not
thinking
only
about any of
that,
that. I'm just thinking. I'm just focused on the show. I'm not paying attention to names and details.
yeah, I mean, March 18th, I'm 11 years old. I don't give a shit. I want to see him fly. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
thinking of, now through my grandfather stuff, I did like Ronald Reagan. A lot of people like Ronald Reagan. I liked Ronald Reagan. Certainly didn't want him to be shot. And they probably
Right.
said John Hinckley Jr.'s name like 200 times that day. I never made that association, except for when I read articles at the time or heard on TV that they had changed his name because he had the same name just by coincidence. But there was no need for them to do that. I mean, it's not like his name was Ralph bin Laden and, it was on September 11th. It wasn't quite that
Yeah.
on the nose. But anyway, so the gist of it is that Ralph, the teacher, takes his at-risk students on a field trip, and they stop at this restaurant where they're there, and they run into this guy it's an FBI agent who's a real, he thinks, these rough kids are, scumbags basically, and he's pretty open about it. So then they leave, and then Ralph's car breaks down, or the bus, I should say, breaks down with all the kids on it, because you'll find out in a minute. And then he starts walking. He tells them, go ahead and stay. But his girlfriend, played by Connie Selica, goes with them. And they're walking through, and they see a UFO that shows up. And Bill Maxwell also happens to be there. So the aliens, they give Ralph a briefcase, and in that briefcase is a superhero suit. And they tell him that,
I know he was hoping it was going to be $1 million, but alas.
I would have. And but I'd rather have the super suit myself, because then you get your own $1 million. He was told by the aliens that he needs to team up with Bill Maxwell of the FBI, and that they need to do good and bring justice to the world, because the aliens were on a planet where that didn't happen, and it was destroyed. And so there's only a certain amount, a limited amount of what they called green or garden planets, or whatever they called it. And so they got to do that. Well, they had inside the case, they had the suit, and they also had instructions on how to use the suit. But Ralph, he loses the instructions, and all he has is the suit. So the only way he can learn to use the powers is through trial and error, and wackiness ensues. Okay, now we're okay. Well, as you might have guessed, something happened, and if I had Ralph's suit, perhaps I could have prevented us from running out of time there on this recording, but I didn't. I don't. So it happened. So anyway, life goes on. Speaking of Ralph's suit and the powers that they had, it kind of was, his suit was a MacGuffin for sure, but one of the greatest things about it was that it just pretty much whatever solution was necessary, it had a way of doing that. So he was constantly discovering new powers for his suits. I mean, when I say constantly, I mean literally every episode he would discover a new power in that suit. He didn't have his instruction book, like I said, so it was kind of, a good way to add these little surprises into every episode. And of course,
Would it be Bill saying, "Hey, try this, try that"?
Yeah, he would just tell him to, well, you could just do this, Ralph. what happens if they drop a nuclear bomb? Well, you could probably just suck all that
Mhm.
energy in with your suit, that kind of thing. Most famously, of course, or most iconically, would be him flying through the air. It never got old. Want to describe it, Maddie?
And then where he's all flippy floppy on the screen.
Yes, he doesn't know how to fly. So
Yeah,
instead,
he's just struggling. Like, I don't know if I can control this.
yeah, he's like, whoa, through the air,
Yeah.
and he doesn't know how to land. So throughout the whole series, for the most part, when he would go to land, he would just smash into a bunch of trash cans or something. He'd hit the ground at like 600 miles an hour. So I think in one episode they mentioned that he was going something like 4,100 miles an hour, or something. So yeah,
God.
because he was going faster than the fighter jet, which was going like Mach 3 or something. So he was going super, super, super fast. He also had super strength, could lift pretty much anything that the plot. Did I say plot? I meant that was necessary. He had invulnerability, of course, and even though he didn't have a helmet, his face and his head were exposed, they still were protected by the suit. He had invisibility, which he could sometimes control and sometimes not, to humorous effect. Precognition, telekinesis, X-ray vision, super speed, of course, pyrokinesis, he could set stuff on fire. He could shrink, and that comes into play here in just a second.
Was there how about strength? Super strength?
Yeah, he had super strength. He had super, super strength. So he could do psychometry, which is holographic vision. And he even had the ability to detect the supernatural. So it was almost whatever he needed, the suit was.
God, I mean, what is he? Just Galactus?
Basically, there was invisibility was a funny one because he couldn't always control when he was invisible or not. The whole show was funny. It was a very funny show. And
If you're an 8-year-old.
if you're an 8-year-old, I haven't seen it in many, actually, since it probably came off. And I didn't even get to see it a lot because I had a problem with it. Was on ABC, and where I grew up in Botetourt County, there was, we live in the mountains, and there was mountains between us and the hill city, Lynchburg, which is where ABC was broadcast from. So a lot of times I would go to watch it, especially in the summer. It would not come in very well at
So
night.
you yell something like "stupid mountains, stupid
Yeah.
technology."
Yes, I would, for sure, because it was stupid mountains and stupid technology. And we even had one of those fancy antenna that like my dad had set up where it would,
Oh, the motor on it?
yeah, you could turn it to like southwest or whatever. And
Oh yeah. Yeah. You were definitely, you were trying your ass off at that point.
everything I could do to watch the show, I would. I loved it. Same problem with $6 Million Man came on ABC, so I wasn't always able to watch that. And these are like two seminal shows in this boy's life. But it did have a lot of humor, a whole lot of humor. But it wasn't a straight out, it wasn't a goofball comedy, even though they had a lot of goofball comedy in it. But it never took itself seriously. For example, Bill Maxwell, that's the FBI agent who was played so brilliantly by Robert Culp. When he first meets Ralph, like I said, they had words basically, and then they were told by these aliens to become friends. And Bill did something, I think, in the first episode that got Bill an accommodation. So he saw right there, hey, if there's like 50 armed thugs over there, I can just send Ralph in with his suit. And and so Bill kind of used it that way. Bill was a good guy though, but he still was really rough around the edges. So Bill, one time when they had a shootout, they were in Ralph's kitchen, and he said he was hungry. Bill said he was hungry. He reaches over and he grabs this cookie jar and he starts to eat the cookies, and they're like real crunchy. He's like, these are really, really good cookies. And Ralph's not really paying attention. And then suddenly realizes, hey, Bill, those are actually dog biscuits. So he was eating dog biscuits. And
oh, what a hoot.
Yeah, he didn't know. So, but he's like, oh, well, they're good. So the rest of the show, not just that episode, the rest of the series, Bill kept some dog biscuits in his pocket so he could eat them like a snack. Bill also was like, that's when Ralph realized.
Yes, I knew I wasn't just the only one.
that
When I
one.
was a kid, I liked dog biscuits.
Yeah, I'd tried dog biscuits and they were a little bland, but not so bad. But the tender vittles, I tried those, and actually I thought they tasted.
Is that the ones that are like clay?
Yeah, it's like fresh. Yeah, they're like clay. So, but I tasted them once. I was feeding our cat Miss Puss, and she, she loved them. So I was like, I'll try them out. And yeah, they are like clay. They kind of taste like clay, but for some reason I kind of liked them. I mean, I didn't put them in my pocket and eat them as a snack like Bill Maxwell, but so Bill was that's when Ralph noticed Bill's bleeding. You're like, Bill, you were shot. And he looks and goes, oh, okay. Oh no, it's okay. It's just a through hole. I always just thought that was so cool. He's so tough that, oh no, it was just it came in and went out. It didn't hit the bone. I'm good. So that's how Ralph was. I mentioned stoic. He's tough. Yeah. And I can't say enough about Robert Culp and his portrayal of Bill Maxwell, because he's gruff. Culp kind of made a whole career out of being a guy that could be easily irritated and bite back basically, but yet was still endearing. So that's a fine line to cross.
Yeah.
So Ralph had a girlfriend, I mentioned. Her name was Pam Davidson. She was played by Connie Selica. And when Maddie and I were talking about, making this episode, he sent me a text saying, I'd forgotten all about Connie Selica. Yeah. So she was a looker. And I don't remember what else she was in, but she wasn't like Hotel. That was it. So she didn't have the looks of, say, a Charlie's Angel or something, although I didn't. Cheryl Ladd, let's say. Cheryl Ladd was a sexy woman. Connie Selica was pretty and sexy in a different way. She wasn't like the kind of wild, beautiful blonde. She's a brunette. But one of the people that was an actor that was a student for Ralph was Michael Pare. Do you know who that was?
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting thing. I thought for research, I'm going to start binge watching Greatest American Hero.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got realistically through maybe the first 30 minutes of the first episode.
Is it bad? Like unwatchable?
No. It's just one. I thought, okay, this is a little darker, more serious than I recall.
Wow.
Like maybe once again, it starts off more serious and then starts drifting towards being more goofy.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I'm taken aback is, Michael Perry, his character in this, he's supposed to be a high school senior.
Right. Yeah. And he's like,
you're telling me this 28-year-old guy,
yeah,
is a senior in high school, and let's just say he is, what the hell? He is threatened. He wants to fight his teacher.
Yeah, all the time.
And they've agreed in this episode that, okay, not today, but tomorrow, I'll go in the ring with you. We'll box. And then later, yes.
I mean, tomorrow you can knife me, but today we need to learn about Thomas Jefferson. Yeah.
He decides to do the field trip, and the guy's like going to give him guff, and he's like, "Look, we're not doing this today. I already told you. We'll do this tomorrow. Get on this bus, and I need to make sure you're safe. Even though tomorrow you want to kick my ass.
Okay, I'll burn you alive in your house."
Yeah.
So Michael Pare, he had a pretty good career. I think he's still in stuff, but anyway, the thing that, besides this show, the thing I know him,
Streets of Fire.
He was in Streets of Fire, which moving sidewalks I don't see under my feet. That was the biggest. Okay. Yeah, that was the biggest thing off of that. But he was also in Eddie and the Drifters, Eddie and the Cruisers. That's what it was. Eddie and the Cruisers.
Yes.
Which I loved. And if you ever get a chance, everybody to watch that, it has Joey Pants in it. It was really well done. It was actually a big hit and had a big crossover hit. Dark side's coming down, nothing is real. You'll never know just how I feel. So that was a big hit. And then later he did a movie called The Philadelphia Experiment, which is based off.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Urban legend of the ship, the Philadelphia. And he also was married to the American gladiator Lace. I know this from a Playboy article that I read. But yeah, so he had, he was.
It wasn't all just pictures, folks.
No, I read the pictures. Boy, did I read the pictures. And so a little aside here, a little tidbit of info. The logo on the suit was made up on the spot by the costume designer. Basically, the costume designer came in to get notes for what Stephen J. Cannell did, the guy who created the show, what he wanted the suit to be. And he basically said, I want it to be red and black, so it's, easy to see. We could do the green screen and we don't have to worry about it. And she said, well, okay, well, what about the logo on the front? Superhero is going to have a logo. And Stephen J. Cannell was like, I don't know, whatever. I haven't really given it any thought. So on the spot, the costume designer was like, hey, grabs scissors that were sitting on his desk, open them up and say, what do you think of this? And he's like, yeah, sure, go for it. And so that's where they made it from. So that's where that came from on the spot. And it worked. It worked out.
I'm glad you didn't just cut out a snowflake.
Right. Oh yeah, that'd be funny. Or he didn't have a dildo on his desk or something. One for the kids.
He could have, but thank God she didn't notice it there.
Right. So, but it actually worked out for their benefit because there's a thing in Hollywood called the Superman backwards S is what they call it. And basically, when they're doing a show like this, and they have where he's like flying through the air, they basically have a green screen, and they'll shoot him from the left, right, or correct, and then later they're like, well, let's just flip it so it looks like it's not the same thing over and over again. And then with Superman, of course, the S turns around backwards, so that was a problem people noticed. But with this, since it was symmetrical, it didn't matter. However, in some episodes, William Catt wore a watch, and so they would swap arms, and so they didn't even think about it. So, but they weren't taking themselves seriously. It wasn't like,
once again, this is for this is for like 9-year-olds.
Right. We're never going to pay attention, and I never did till 35 years later, because Ralph had he lost his original instruction book. When he ran into the aliens the next time, he told them
it should have been a digital download. Wouldn't have been a problem.
It wouldn't have been a problem, except the problem was it was 1981, so there was no such thing.
Oh.
And so he had, so they gave him a new instruction book. Okay, well, remember one of the powers I said that he had was that he could shrink, and so he was holding the book, and he like opened it up and looked and saw that he could shrink, and he did the powers, boom, so he could shrink. And then he's surrounded by all these grains of sand, which are like giant boulders, and he sets the book on it and then concentrates hard on getting back to his regular shape, which he did. But the instruction book was still microscopic, so he couldn't find it. So he lost it again. He lost it a second time. So that they had said that was their only copy, which makes a whole lot of sense for aliens advanced enough to make the suit in the first place. But I remember seeing that.
It's like, where's my backup floppies?
Right, this is the only one. I remember specifically that episode because I actually was on the verge of tears. I was very happy that he got it. Okay, great. And then he loses it again. And I was so mad at the aliens for not having more, because I was like, it was a simple mistake anybody could make.
But on the other hand, there's the other hand that it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Yeah. So that, so that show was a big hit with Gen Xers, our age in particular, because it was funny, it was silly. Bill Maxwell was cool, he was tough. Connie Selica was hot, and you just never knew in each episode what powers Ralph was going to experience or realize that he had. You do find out later that there were other people. They weren't the first regular person and police type agent for that the aliens had given it to. So they're just another one.
Hey, he's like a Green Lantern.
That's exactly right. There was actually some lawsuits from DC that they were like,
Holy
oh,
crap.
they were like, you're ripping off Superman, you're ripping off the Flash, is what they were saying. But really, they were, they weren't purposefully ripping it off. It just so happened that, hey, these aliens came and gave him this thing that allows him to have abilities that are almost only
in his
limited by
quadrant.
in his
the
quadrant.
exact same one that Green Lantern patrols.
Yes, it's
coincidence.
Yeah, I don't think so. And they did have a crossover comic book too. So, but it was thrown out of court because they had no legs to stand on, and it wasn't that big a deal anyway. It's not like people were like, I'm not going to buy Superman comic books because I'm watching this show. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Since I had some problems seeing it, and did you have any problems viewing it? Did you have any? Was ABC one of the ones that was kind of fuzzy for you?
Oh, where was that? I think I was happy. Yeah, that we could watch them. Now I'm not going to say it wasn't occasionally. There was that snowiness.
Right.
I won't say any of them were like perfectly locked in.
Right. That's
but
true.
Overall, I mean, if we went back to that world, we would find it very noticeable how many times the screen has snow.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. In a analog world where, it's broadcasting through radio waves. And if it's a weak signal, you're still able to see it to some degree. Unlike now it's binary. It's either you
see it or you don't
see it or don't. Yeah. Right. So, but I did, I was very fortunate to come across some old files that I'd had from when I was a kid. And it really highlighted, how it was for me basically back then with having a hard time watching Greatest American Hero on ABC. And you just so happened, folks, we planned this in advance. We planned this little part in advance. I asked Matty if he had any, any kind of footage or audio or anything of his experience when this show came on. That was very, we loved it so much when we were kids. And he said,
addicts,
total addicts. Yeah. So I haven't heard his, he hasn't heard mine. So I'm going to go ahead and play those right now. And then we can react when it's over. It's good enough for you, Matty?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad you did it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll dive in and then we'll talk about it. And 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, homework is done. I've been waiting all week for Wednesday night for my favorite show, The Greatest American Hero. Let me look inside the TV guide and see what fun we'll have with Ralph and Bill tonight. Let me see. Tonight on ABC's The Greatest American Hero, Ralph, William Catt, and his FBI agent friend, Bill Maxwell, Robert Culp, team up with the $6 million man, Steve Austin, played by Lee Majors, Batman, Adam West, Captain Kirk, William Shatner, Andre the Giant, and football star and national treasure O.J. Simpson, and this very special 2-hour episode that can't be missed. We mean it, folks. They actually wrote this. Okay, we mean this, folks. If you miss this, you will never, ever be able to catch up again. And since this is 1981, there's no way for you to record this unless you're a billionaire. Billionaire? What the heck is a billionaire? Anyway, it's time.
Over to first base again.
Stupid thing. Stupid mountains.
get stoned.
Stupid technology. I can almost see it. Almost. I can kind of see his suit. Is that Andre? Did I just hear Steve Austin jump? Oh, hold on. Antenna. Ralph. And it's biggest secret yet. Yes, Bit. It's stashed. Yeah. Oh, I think I just broke my hand. Well, it's not like I'm an artist or anything.
Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away at a different time. Man, I get ABC crystal clear. And I'm so happy I'm not one of those suckers who can't watch the very first episode of The Greatest American Hero with William Caddis, Ralph Hinckley. March 18th, 1981 is going to be the best night of my life. Now, turning this TV on.
Interrupt this broadcast to bring you the following. President Ronald Reagan has been shot by a man named John Hinckley. We will now spend the next 6 hours talking about this world-shattering story.
Who cares about that crap? Why did this have to happen when The Greatest American Hero with William Caddis, Ralph Hinckley? Wait, what did the reporter say that guy's name was?
Wow, that
Whoa.
yeah, for me, I know it was frustrating, but I didn't remember it being fully that frustrating. And you had it coming out on it has to be a collector's item or something of you, that first night, and that it was a historical moment.
Man, it was intense.
Yeah. It's crazy. And what are you going to do? Here we are talking about it 237 years later.
How many?
Do you have any more recollections that you want to share of our Greatest American Hero?
Why was it called Greatest American Hero?
Because it was 1981 and it was made in America, and people were becoming patriotic. So put America in it, and hey, the kids will watch it, baby. That's my guess.
It must be. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, but that's
it wasn't like he was going around with the American flag,
right?
It wasn't like a Captain America, like that,
or even Superman. Superman was truth, justice, in the American way, right? So that might be what they got it kind of led from.
Yeah, I think that's what they did. I think it just made it evoked something along those lines.
Yes, his being a bumbling fool made me very proud of America. So
yeah, it couldn't be truth in advertising.
He lost all his shit and he
bumbling
smashed
idiot.
Into walls. USA, dumbass. Hey,
so bumbling idiot in the U.S. Okie dokie. That's where we'll end this episode. Stay tuned for the very next special episode where we talk about the next chronological masterpiece in our Big Four, Knight Rider. Until then, he's Vannyboy.
And he's Mattyman. Pay attention to where you place your instructions.
Please. I'm begging you.